Ricky Starks did an interview with Chris V, and I really wanted to watch the interview and do it this way. I didn't have time to watch it the week that it came out. Um, and then I believe the week after that was Thanksgiving. So I finally have the time to sit down and watch it and break it down. And they go right into it. They ask him where he has been since March of 2024. That was the last time Ricky Starks was on AEW television. And even then, I don't think that he was even in a storyline or in any kind of way. I think they slowly began to wane Ricky Starks off of TV. He had the match March, I believe it was, and then that was it. They pretty much was like, okay, we're gonna shift it in a different direction. I don't know, but Ricky really basically was just like, I've been at home. And I'm just like, eh? Like, that was generally his reaction. And the initial reaction was he was sipping his drink in the coffee mug. And Chris V just asked him, like, where have you been? Why haven't we seen you since March of this year? Ricky just took a swig of his drink. He kind of choked a little bit. Took a swig of his drink, gave these really big eyes, like, that we going right there immediately. But he basically was like, I just been at home. I've been at home. It's been nice to be at home. But, and Chris V asked him, was like, hey, do you want to be on TV? And he was like, of course. And they go into why he doesn't really give you a full assessment of why he's been at home, but he does tell you that that's not something that he himself wants to do. He wanted to be on TV, be in storylines, and be working. He would prefer that. But he's okay. He's happy. He's got to be at home. He got some rest. The body needed rest. He got some of that. But he does prefer to be working. Now, I will clarify. He's not like saying that he's happy with being at home. He's saying that he's okay. He's not hurt. He's not injured. He had a stinger in the match against Top Flight that he had in March, but that was cleared after he went to medical and everything was fine. He's just been at home. He said that he's in his prime, and when you're on such a high trajectory, for you to then end up in a state of just nothing, it can be a little bit of a mind fuck for you. So he was like, he's not meant to be a homebody. He doesn't like it. He's not necessarily happy about that, but he's dealing with it. He wants to be on TV. He wants to be performing. He wants to do the thing that he has been training and fighting for this whole time, which is to be a performer, an entertainer on television. And he's not doing that right now. So he says that's not something that he's aspiring to be as a homebody. He really wants to be out there in the thick of it. Which says a lot about him and his work ethic and his dedication and the focus that he has on his career and his life. He understands where he is and what he wants to do. But I think that the powers that be over at AEW, once they get wind that things, for them, things aren't going right, or they decide to change things, everybody gets caught in a crossfire. And I think what happened with Ricky is around the time when they began to change and shift producers, change their entire backstage, that changed how Ricky was seen and a focal point in the company. And this also speaks to a lot of things that I was talking about on our Down for the Count podcast, shameless plug. But I always talk about it because when all three of us get together and we're able to, pardon my nephew, he's in the background, he's watching TV. You may hear him throughout this particular video, but just know that it's just my nephew. He's autistic and he's watching TV. Leave it at that. So, we talk about this all the time when it comes to AEW and how the structural nature of AEW and their backstage is interesting. It's all based on your favor within the company. And while that is the truth when it comes to WWE, it can change in the E very quickly because of how you get over with the crowd. But that's not the case when it comes to AEW. You may come in as the star commodity when you come in there, but that can shift over time. Like, let's take in point, we look at how Keith Lee was a big draw for AEW, or at least he was a hot commodity at the time. He shows up, he gets in, and then he has a small stint with Swerve. That doesn't, pop off the way it should. And they decide, oh, Swerve's the guy. And they go with Swerve and leave Keith Lee hanging in the balance. Whereas the difference with somebody like Samoa Joe came from WWE, went to the to AEW and blew up, and became world champion in AEW after being Ring of Honor champion. And Samoa Joe just collected titles. The difference in how they did Ruby Soho. Ruby Soho was a big draw for AEW to come in, and she had a big production of her and a big thing. And then they fizzled out with her. They put her in the Outsiders. It didn't go anywhere. Same thing happened with Saraya. Saraya comes back from a neck injury, comes in, big, massive pop, huge draw. Everybody's happy. Everybody's like, she's going to be champion. Sure. But after a while, her star power started to dwindle. And then she fell out of favor and was never seen. Like, you don't see her on TV that often. And then, you have people like, Toni Storm. She was an anomaly like Samoa Joe. She comes in under the radar, but she gets a massive pop when she shows up, goes into the show, and then as time goes on, she shifts her character and creates this entire phenomenon with Timeless Tony that works for her and puts her in a completely different realm. And it really showed what Toni Storm was very much capable of, which is creating stories and creating a fixation around a particular aspect of American media, which was film. And she just did that old time starlet. Then they took a storyline from a movie and used that to put over another starlet in terms of Mariah May. And Mariah May has been rolling ever since. And even in that, Mariah May isn't being booked properly as a champion. But that's another conversation for another day. But you get what I mean. The way that they structure how people are presented is interesting. The only other anomaly that I would say that came into the AEW would be like John Moxley, of course, Daniel Bryan, of course. Those are anomalies. But guys like Jay White, guys like the Murder Hawk, guys like Ricky Starks, Kaz, I think his name is Big Will or something like that. I can't remember what his new name is now. Those guys are like they're not pillars in my opinion. They are your staples. They are the guys who have come in from the indies and from other promotions, smaller promotions, and are going to be the stepping stones of building that mid-card division as well as getting into the main event. And when you don't nurture that, this is what you get. You get a guy like Ricky Starks who can exist in all realms. Tag team, mid-card, main event. He's a great character, an amazing finesser with his persona and the way he carries himself. You can really utilize Ricky in almost every aspect, whether the storyline is massive or small. He is going to give you 150% every time. So to hear that this type of guy with this type of dedication and work ethic and the way that he carries himself and how he would go 150% every single time is sitting at home with nothing to do and isn't getting called for anything, like the current storyline that we're having right now with the Death Riders, why is not Ricky involved in that? You could put him in there. You shoehorned Hangman Adam Page in there when he was actually doing pretty damn good as a heel at the moment. And then you abruptly turn him face, which just, it sounds so weird and unnecessary. It just was strange. It's strange. It doesn't look like it fits. And I'm sorry, I don't like it. But Ricky Starks could have been the guy that showed up and helped, and you could have had him back on television, and he could have been talking and giving this storyline some reinvigorated life that it actually needs. But instead, he's still at home. And that leads me to believe that there's something else going on here, because there's no way you could have the guy who has more charisma than half your roster more acting capability than half your roster. For you to have him sitting at home when he's going to be the one who gets over with the casual fans. He's going to be the one that's going to draw viewers in. The type of online buzz that he got around the time him and MJF was going at it is what you could be drawing from right now if you utilized him correctly. I'm going to finish listening to this interview, but I had to get that off my chest. So to get back to the interview, he says that Chris asked him straight up, like, what's the reason? And he says, I don't know. Essentially, he has no clear, definitive answer as to why he is not being utilized on television currently as we speak. He said that he can speculate exactly what happened in terms of why he's not being used. And there are 1,000 theories as to what is going on behind the scenes, but he generally does not have a clear, definitive answer to any of that. So when people ask him that, he literally is telling you the truth that he doesn't truly know. He does have some speculation. He has an idea. But he said speculating isn't going to help the issue and it isn't going to change what's happening. And so if he doesn't have a clear, definitive answer, the answer is just going to remain, I don't know. To be honest with you, that's fair. He said he's not happy with that. He said that sucks. He wants to be on TV. He wants to be wrestling because Chris V asked him. And he flat out said, yes, I want to do this. I want to be there. I want to be on TV. I want to be used, of course. But that's not the case right now. So I was just like, all right. Then I would like to know what exactly is happening because I'm not of the idea that he has to be the one that is used in every situation. But like I said before, when you have a talent like Ricky Starks, you don't let him go to the wayside. You utilize him to the best of your ability. And I don't think he has to be shoehorned into everything, but Ricky Starks can fit in and create, storylines and stories wherever he is needed. I think sometimes over in Dynamite, they get so caught up in the initial pop of everything. They're very much in their cupcake phase, which I'll get to in a second. But no, I'll explain it now and get it over with. So like when you're dating someone, right, and you're having a relationship with them, in the beginning, the relationship is great because you're just getting to know each other. You're finding out new things. It's exciting. You get that nice, loving, bubbly feeling. You get that, flutter, butterflies, all of that. Those new emotions or that newness feeling always feels great in the beginning. But then when you start to get into routine, you're rolling, everything is dwindling down, and then you're really starting to get to know a person. That part of the relationship, that middle ground where you're trying to figure out if you want to be in a full blown relationship or if you just want to, be cool and casual. That's the part where you really decide if you're a relationship person or if you're a dating person. And in this case, when it comes to AEW, they are very much a cupcake phase type of company. Whereas they enjoy that initial pop and early feeling of these superstars, their storylines and their booking, but they don't have anything long term. The longevity of that doesn't work out in their favor. And they have a hard time understanding the dynamic of their relationship with their superstars, especially when it comes to reinventing the stories and changing it. Because I'm going to tell you what's going to happen with the Hurt Syndicate. When the Hurt Syndicate starts to really wind down, because after a while, it's going to become tedious and tired. And when that happens, they're going to have to find a new way to keep the Hurt Syndicate going, which is one of the reasons why I believe Triple H didn't bring them back to WWE on TV. And in all fairness, a small stint, like a 6-month stint for the Hurt business, to me would have been okay, especially over on SmackDown. Would have been easy and okay. You could have had the New Bloodline feuding with the Hurt business and then had the Hurt business go down. You could have had the Street Profits join the Hurt business as well with Shelton Benjamin and made it a whole new thing. Okay. It was possible for it to be done. I won't shit on it fully, but where I have a problem with it is longevity. There's no way for you to reinvent the wheel with the Hurt Syndicate in any way, shape, or form. It is what it is. Now, they've added some new things where they're giving out gold cars, like this is fucking Willy Wonka and shit. And that's cute, whatever. And they're bringing in people that you probably wouldn't suspect, somebody like Ricochet being a part of the Hurt Syndicate, but Ricochet needs this more than the Hurt Syndicate does, if we're being honest. But my problem, like I said, is longevity. They're not like Judgment Day over on Raw and WWE, where there can be some revamping of that group in order to extend its longevity. Like the Hurt Syndicate would not work without MVP, Bobby Lashley, or Shelton. And even if you remove one of them, it's not going to hit the same. So the way that their particular stable is going to fizzle out is going to be exactly how I'm telling you. Yeah, Bobby Lashley is at some point probably will get that AEW World Championship. He probably will be champion, and the Hurt Syndicate's going to be dominant as long as, whatever. If Tony Khan pulls the trigger, which I'm pretty sure he would. I'm sure that was one of the promises he made. But after a while, it's going to become daunting, and part of the reason is because they already have an overly dominant heel faction in the Death Riders. They already have that. And it's just going to go on this long diatribe, and it's just going to fizzle out because they're not going to have a way to make this work where it's not exhausting to the fans and it actually feels fresh and something that people are going to be interested in. But back to Ricky Starks, because I'm going to go on his tangent here. So y'all just got to knuckle down and bear with me, okay? Because we're talking about AEW and what they could be doing with Ricky, and we're talking about this interview. So we're kind of doing two birds with one stone. And sometimes that involves other people that I'm going to mention, and I go on tangents. It's just part of my nature. But Ricky Starks, like I said, has said on many occasions that he does want to be back in the company. He does want to work, and he doesn't understand why he's not working. It's going to be a long interview. He goes on to say that Crispy asked him, was there any point where he starts to realize, like, oh, shit, I'm not being booked? He said no. He said there wasn't a time where I was just like, okay, they're not going to call me anymore. He was like, you just kind of figured it out. But he basically went on to say, like, he's working out. He has, been keeping up with his regimen. He's not sitting down resting on his laurels. And that he has an indie date coming up, which we all know that indie date was canceled, which I'll get to that after the interview, because that's a different conversation. It's separate from the interview itself, but it came out slightly before the interview, I want to say, because the indie booking went up and then GCW announced that it was canceled. I don't know why. I'm not sure as to the clear definition, but I did get some insight from my podcast homegirl Nicole and some other wrestling people. So like I'll explain that to the best of my ability later on, but for right now we'll stick to the interview. So he then says that he has his booking, which during this interview he did have the booking. And he was just like, I have those things, but yeah, I'm not being booked, and it just is what it is. He said that you have to be very careful about what you say, because things can get spun out of control into rumors, because people write what they want to write. He said people will believe what they see on the internet before they'll believe you. And he said it's interesting because people you work with, people will believe this. I think the problem is that we are in the age of spin. We put a lot of faith and trust in the media, whether it's media for sports, like what we see with the dirt sheets right now, Fightful Select, Wrestling News, Observer, especially with Dave. He is always somebody that everybody hypes up, and everybody that's with him. Sean Ross Sapp is another one that everybody, Ryan Satin, and of course Chris V over here. These types of guys are people that they put a lot of their faith and trust in due to the type of content that they produce in terms of their interviews, and of course the news when it comes to the wrestlers, the business, and everything in between. The reason why the media sometimes can be believed over the wrestlers is because y'all will hide a lot of things that you obviously don't want out, but the media is going to tell you one way or another. Now, whether that agenda is for them to be able to get views and clicks, is obvious that that's what's happening. But for a wrestling fan who doesn't understand how the game works and they're not clear on what is real and what isn't, they're gonna believe the person who they believe is the most truthful, which for some reason they believe the dirt sheets are more truthful than the wrestlers. And I honestly don't have an opinion one way or another when it comes to it. Sometimes the wrestlers lie to protect themselves and to protect their families, which in all seriousness, I don't have an issue with. Oftentimes they're protecting their careers and themselves, which again, I don't have any issues with. The wrestling media, though, they're not doing anything other than trying to gain views and clicks to their websites. That's how they make their money. And in order for them to make money, they got to bring eyes to their websites. They have to have the clicks. They have to have the views. If they don't have that, then nobody's watching. Nobody cares. So they'll make up something, or they will take something that these people have said and spin it so that it sounds like something else when it really is what the wrestler is saying. And that's just a common tactic in the media, period. When you watch any other type of media, bloggers, especially bloggers, they will take something and it will be shifted into something totally different. Like you could be smelling flowers and somebody will be like, you got a poppy addiction because you're in a poppy field and you're standing there taking a picture in a poppy field and they'll be like, oh, heroin addict. Like that'll be the first thing that you'll see on the headlines. Could literally just be standing in the middle of a poppy field, which isn't like smart, but I'm just saying, like, it's the association and the way that they change the narrative just based off of something really innocent. Like, case in point, I'll give you an example. There was a fan who changed Cynthia Erivo's Wicked poster because on the original poster, the Elphaba's face is completely covered and all you see are her lips. So Cynthia Erivo was very upset. She was like, she wrote this whole diatribe about like my face, like I'm African American, I'm African of the African descent, like da da da. Like she went on this whole tirade because she's English, she is not African American, but it was just like a whole tirade, and he was like, "Whoa, Nelly, calm down, babe." Like the reason why they changed the picture was not to cover up your face. The reason why they changed the picture is because the original Wicked poster had a shadow casted over Elphaba's face, and all you saw was the red lip. That's all you saw. You didn't see her full-on face. You didn't see that. So I'm just saying, like, the way that things can get spun and misconstrued, that wasn't a media thing. That was just Cynthia Erivo, but it was a really good example. I just had to pair it like that. It's not, to me, it's not fascinating because it's fairly simple. Salaciousness, sex, and controversy is what sells. Nobody cares that you're a nice person and you're doing nice things. They want to be able to get mad, and rage bait is a real thing. It is a true thing. Plus, negativity spreads so much faster than positivity on the internet. It's crazy. And that is because people are looking for a reason to not feel bad about themselves so they can project that shit onto everything else. They do it all the time. And oftentimes it be bots and shit doing this, and it become but one person just farming a bunch of negativity. You would be surprised at how quickly that negativity can spread and how things can be done. Like, have you ever seen the movie Catfish? Like the first movie to kick off this phenomenon. And you can see how this lady created an entire life just from herself. She had like 15, 20 different accounts. All of them were like family members and friends. And she was just logging into these accounts, like typing. And she would do it so quickly, like jumping from account to account to prove that she's a real person and she really exists. It's nuts the way that they do this. So, like, all I'm saying is that while it can come across as, ooh, that's strange, that's weird, there's a method to the madness. So to make a long story short, they talk about the fans and how the fans are like very dedicated to him, very supportive of him, and he's grateful for his fans. And then they go into like, does he think that he's being punished? To which Ricky answers no. He says he doesn't believe that he's being punished. He doesn't believe he's done anything to be punished for. And he's essentially, it's like, if that was the case, then that could have been a discussion, you know. But he doesn't believe that that's the case. He just has no idea why he's not on television. Then they went into the backstage footage of Royal Rumble and the footage of him being at Mania. He's very adamant that he doesn't give a damn about what anybody says about that. And he feels as though he should be able to move however he pleases. It doesn't matter where he works. He's not there to go after the company. He is there to support his friend. Now, in the first instance with the Royal Rumble, he was caught on security footage. That is very clear. You can tell by the video still. It was either a camera phone or security footage, but it looked like security footage because camera phones are much, much better and higher quality than most security footage. And it was him walking to Cody's bus. It wasn't him walking around backstage in the locker room or talking to other superstars, which to me, that could gain a lot of speculation into whether he was leaving AEW or not. But he was walking with Cody. Cody was in that still frame. And I remember seeing him because he was behind Cody. And he was going to Cody's bus. He said he stayed on the bus. He didn't get off the bus. He was literally on Cody's bus with him, the family, and everything. WrestleMania, however, he was in the loge at WrestleMania. He was in the box, and it was QT Marshall. It was him, Aaron Solo, Dustin Rhodes. It was a bunch of them in there together. But the reason why Ricky Starks sparks the controversy is because of this, and it's very simple. You've got two companies who are rivaling and stealing each other's talent left and right. When that type of underbelly is happening, it is always going to cause speculation, rumors, and innuendo when you have people who are high in the likes of WWE or high in the likes of AEW, fans and company alike, who seem to be looking as if they're jumping ship or spending time with other people. If you are somebody like me who has a little bit more understanding of how an infrastructure works in terms of the industry and a business as a whole, then you would understand that these wrestlers travel in circles and they all know each other from some walk of life. Whether it's early in their career or late in their career, they're going to cross paths with someone. And that is because the wrestling community in terms of the indie division, the indie scene, and then mainstream is still very small. It's not a massive industry in the regards of like, you're not going to come across some of these people or you're never going to see them. Even if you go overseas, you're going to run in the same circles of people. It's kind of like with football and basketball and any other professional sport. You are in a niche category and you're working in this industry, you're going to run into these people at some point. And that happens with football players, basketball players. You may not play on the East Coast. You may be a West Coast team. You may not, see everybody, but you're going to eventually come across these players at some point, whether it be during your downtime personally or professionally. You're going to, because you guys exist in a particular subculture. That is the same thing for wrestlers. They are all going to cross paths professionally or in leisure because of the subculture that they exist in and that they live in. Like, a lot of people live the lives that they, curate. And oftentimes we curate what makes us comfortable. You may be comfortable in turmoil, trauma, or whatever the case may be, but oftentimes we live in the comfort of our lives. So you're going to curate a particular space that mentally and physically is healthy for you by your standards. So you will talk to people who operate in that same world and vein. And I think that's what's happening here. But given the salaciousness and the need for a bombshell headline to drive traffic and to make noise and to be messy, this is what happens. Even something as innocent as him supporting someone that he loves, that's a friend to him, it doesn't matter. To the outside looking in, it looks like because Cody jumped ship, now Ricky Starks is going to jump ship as well. I remember early when the rumors of Cody leaving was around, they were saying MJF was walking too. And I was just like, that's interesting. But then you started to see what was happening online. The discourse online really is what gives life to a lot of rumors. And because it's so easy for Dave Meltzer to put that out, they trust Dave Meltzer over everyone. So that's the reason why even the innocent stuff that he's done, it's going to be exacerbated and blown up into something else, because everybody's looking for the drama. They want to have discord. They want to be able to talk about it and to make conversation over something as simple as you visiting your friend and supporting your friend. And probably one of the biggest aspects of one of the biggest marks of his career, which was WrestleMania. But to give you guys some context, Ricky was caught on footage, security footage, headed back to the bus for Cody Rhodes, which was at Royal Rumble. The second time was when he was caught in the loge in the box, and that was at WrestleMania. Okay. And he was like, I really don't care about how people feel about that. He had people at his job that were basically telling him, like, this is not a good look. You shouldn't have been doing that. Like, it doesn't look good. And to play devil's advocate, I can understand why they would say that. But in my opinion, I have to agree with Ricky. You guys are human. Like, these are your friends. I shouldn't have to move in the shadows to be able to take a picture with you or to be able to be seen with you. I shouldn't have to do that. Like, Bailey and Mercedes shouldn't have to hide in the stands to support Trinity when she got her singles title in TNA. You shouldn't have to hide when you're supporting Mercedes when she was doing her stint in New Japan. You should have been able to have full support despite the companies you work for, because while yes, they are rivals and they're competitors and everything like that, just because let's say I'm an executive for Walmart, doesn't mean I can't go into Target and appreciate a good Target deal. It's as simple as that. But like I said, I can understand the tribalism, the territory aspect of it. And that goes back to the OG days before Vince McMahon broke up the territories of how people operated. If you went into the territory of another wrestling promotion, it was out of respect for them that acknowledge them, that they were there. It was very, very honor amongst thieves type of situation, especially when the territories were in full control of their territories. It was nuts. It was like watching a government run each particular territory. And if you went in there and didn't tell that government that you were there were consequences for that. They were out for blood. So that old school mentality of how you have to operate is still ingrained in a lot of OG wrestlers, whereas the new class of wrestlers are just like, this is all kayfabe anyway. It's storyline, it's TV. I'm not living my life based off of that. I want to be able to enjoy life, and people are my friends outside of storylines. We're still friends. And that's okay, because like, I liken wrestling and storylines to the same thing of TV shows. You don't ask Kerry Washington to not kiss her husband because her character was in love with Fitz on Scandal. You don't ask her that. You don't ask her to not take pictures with the villain of the TV show, because you understand that this is a TV show, that they are portraying characters, and that's what we're watching. The same thing with wrestling. I don't give a shit if it's live TV or not. This isn't live reality TV where they're portraying something to be real, but in all actuality, they've also created characters and set up a storyline, and then they're running with it. That's not the case with this. This is wrestling. Wrestling at its core is a storyline, and you are going to be either rooting for the guy who is seemingly to be the good guy, or you're going to be rooting for the guy who's seemingly to be the bad guy. And depending how dastardly that bad guy is, you can root or agree or disagree or whatever the case may be. But at the end of the day, it is still a story, and these wrestlers do have a right to live their lives however they see fit. So he basically said afterwards that he's a fan first. And he was at WrestleMania the year prior when Cody lost. And then he was there to watch Jade have her first Mania match. Night one, he watched Cody and Roman and Seth and Rock have their match, and then he was there night 2, and they were celebrating night 2. Like, it was a spectacle because it's a thing. And he was just like, outside of the scope of wrestling, like I just said to you guys prior, nobody would bat an eye, and they would not, because it's normal. Like I said, if I work for Sephora and you work for Ulta and Ulta has a deal, I'm coming over there. I don't give a shit. Like, there are some things you can get at Ulta that you can't get at Sephora, and there are some things you can get at Sephora that you can't get at Ulta. Okay? And there's nothing wrong with that. It is, I do disagree with him that it's tribalistic. It is. And like I said, it dates back to the territories. It dates back to those days of you being undyingly loyal to the person who gave you your career. Oh, my career is so sacred. Without them, I would never be there. And then at this point in the times in our lives and just in wrestling in general, you don't have to do that. So like I said, the OGs are so focused on keeping that particular thing. Kayfabe is dead. We have to keep kayfabe alive. People are smart enough to understand the difference between reality and fiction. If you're reading a book and it says that it's fiction, you understand that what you're reading isn't real. However, it doesn't change the emotion that you have in response to characters dying, people getting married, people falling in love that you wanted to fall in love. It doesn't change anything. Or a massive triumph in that book. It doesn't change how you feel about it. As long as it is presented in a way so that you understand that you can watch this and watch it through the lens of it being a television show, or just read this and it be a book, to keep the analogy going, you would understand that that's what it is. And that's it. And you can turn it on and off at any point, but it doesn't change the emotional reaction that you have to it. It is what it is. That's why I don't understand people's weirdo behavior when it comes to AEW and WWE. I don't need to have a war with WWE and AEW. I don't need that. I enjoy both programs whenever I want to. AEW has some things that I really, really like. I like Hangman Adam Page. I like Ricky Starks. I like MJF. I love Chris Statlander. I think Chris Statlander is severely underrated in AEW. I love Willow Nightingale. She is the perfect aspect of what a baby face can be without being too goody two shoes. You know what I mean? I love her. Toni Storm has revived and revamped herself in AEW, and I'm more than proud of her. I gave that woman hell. I like Orange Cassidy. It took me a minute to really get into Orange Cassidy, but I like Orange Cassidy. I like Top Flight. I think Top Flight is excellent as a tag team. I liked Best Friends when both of them were healthy and could compete together. I loved them as a tag team. And I liked as SoCal when they were there. I love them, even though they were like OG rated, like, you know what I'm saying? I like them. Scorpio Sky, great. I liked a lot of wrestlers, and I was introduced to a lot of new people because of AEW. If it hadn't been for AEW, I probably wouldn't know who half of these people are. My problem with AEW, though, is their lack of consistency in storylines. Like, they will switch on a dime when it comes to something. And even to me, if a storyline isn't working, then help it coax along, but let that shit play out. Because when you cut it off at the knees like that, and then just move the person into something new and different, and don't give it a reason, and just like, oh, it's over, we're done with it, it really makes you disinterested in what you're watching, because you don't really have any continuity, and that can happen with something that's actually really good, which is really, it has happened before. So that's one of the reasons why I don't watch AEW as regularly as I should, but I do enjoy the program. I love WWE. I was introduced to wrestling through WWE, and I loved WCW when it was around. But WWE has my heart. They just do. I have been a fan of WWE, the characters, the setup of it. I just like it. And I understand the corporate aspect of it. And yes, they're a corporate monster. They have their demons. I fully understand that. But WWE is like, it's like a family member, even though they're terrible at some points, even though they have their faults and they're mean sometimes, They're doing some shit they ain't got no business. You're mad at them. Some days you love them. The next, they're still family. And I liken the love, hate, indifferent relationship that I have, which is it's probably the most normal relationship you could have with a person. And I would liken that to how I feel about WWE. Because they're going to come in ebb tides and flows. Like, there was a point where I wasn't watching WWE at all. I had stopped watching for about 2 years in the 2000s, the late 2000s, early 2010s. I had stopped watching because I was just exhausted. I was tired. I didn't want to watch it anymore. And then I started watching again, and I really started to enjoy what I was seeing. And even then, after that, with the revamp of WWE and the changes that they've gone through, I was there through, like watching the ebb, tides, and flows. And when AEW first came around, I ain't gonna lie, I was like, probably ain't gonna last. But then things started to change, and you started to see how they're. So, to continue on with the conversation, Ricky goes into like the fan base and what he believes is true, and how he feels about the fan base. Ricky explains that he doesn't really take part in the negativity of the IWC, but he does enjoy talking shit. Like, he's like, I don't understand why I'm the one who has to keep myself together and hold myself accountable when they don't. He was like, if they're gonna go low, I'm going to hell. And essentially he was just like, I grew up in a, early time where talking shit online was par for the course. It was something that we do. So he was like, I'm gonna do it. He said, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna talk as much shit as I can. I'm gonna be on here going off because I can. And he said, because shit, ain't nobody who gonna whoop me. Like, basically that was the response. And then he went into the fans and about and how sometimes the fans feed into the nonsense. And Chris was basically like, I don't think they really understand how close you and Cody are. But he was like, do you think I'm going to sit and explain to a person who's like trying to take a picture of me in the box? Yeah, me and Cody are like really close. And then they're going to be like, can you not take pictures because me and Cody are really close? He was like, no, that shit'll be online and everybody will see it. Like, it'll be like a whole story about it. Essentially, he was just like, look, I don't have to explain nothing to nobody. Like, this is my business. If I want to go and support a friend, that's what I'm going to do. I'm not explaining myself to nobody. I'm not doing none of that. One thing he did do was he did talk to Tony, and Tony was perfectly fine with it. But even still, Ricky is of the mindset that he can move and shake however he wants. He don't like the idea of being confined to this particular space and not being able to show support to people that he loves and is incredibly good friends with. They talked about the details of him and Cody's relationship, how when they would come to town where Ricky lived at the time, Ricky was always used as an extra, which lends a lot of credibility to WWE utilizing indie darlings, indie people to come in and do spots because, of course, they know how to do the stunts. They know the work. Simple learning. They can do it, which Ricky said he's done just about every time they came to town. He was used as one of the stuntmen, as I like to call them, to help, further a storyline, whether he was extra security or whether he was a local talent, whatever the case may be, Ricky was used for those particular spaces. Now, he goes in to talk about, his indie bookings and why he hasn't taken that many indie bookings. And essentially, he's just like, when I was on the indies, I had to level grind and work to get myself to this position. Now that I'm in a bigger position, I'm going to take the bookings that I want to take, the bookings that I like. I'm not just going to take a bunch of indie bookings just because they're out there. I'm going to take things that I'm going to get paid for, that I'm going to be able to work and enjoy doing. I don't have to do that hard work anymore, so I'm not going to. And in all fairness, I agree with him. When you get to a certain level, especially when you're on mainstream television wrestling, there's a certain command of dollar that you're going to require, and there's a certain command of respect that you're going to require. And this is just something that's going to happen organically. You're going to be able to have conversations about the way you're booked, how you're booked, storylines, any of that of the sort, because you're the commodity, you're the draw, which means you hold the power in this situation. And I think Ricky fully understands that. So he's not just going to take some random ass booking just because it's there. He's going to go somewhere where he feels like he can really take advantage of a good opportunity. And I don't blame him for that. So as the interview progresses, Ricky goes in to talk about how he got signed. So when Cody had, I think Cody was doing open challenges at that point when he was TNT champion at the time. Ooh, I was on Cody's ass at that point. I was calling that man Homelander and everything else. But anyways, he was talking about how he got signed. And essentially, Cody Rhodes faced off against Ricky Starks. He was the first unsigned wrestler to challenge for the TNT championship. Even though he lost, he did a pretty decent job. He got, pretty good accolades. Even Arn Anderson was like, yo, this is unheard of for an unsigned competitor to come in and have a banger of a match with the champion. This isn't normal. And he was like, yeah, this is different. Ricky then explains that that match was how he got signed. Initially, he went into it with no expectations. He expected actually to not be signed at all. And he was just like, yeah, I'm not going to get signed. I'm just going to go in, do my job, do my 1-2 ditty, go back to the Indies, get me a couple more bookings, and, keep building myself up. Because at that time, he had just left NWA. And he was really good on NWA Power. I remember watching him on there. And I was like, who is this fine ass light skinned dude? Talking mad shit. You know what I'm saying? Like him, Ethan Drake at the time, I believe his name was Ethan Drake, which is LA Knight now. I believe it was Drake. I think his name was Ethan Drake. If I'm wrong, please correct me. I apologize. But they were like my favorites in NWA Power. I loved them. And I was like, ooh, they so cocky and messy and ignorant. And I was like, oh, I live. But anyways, he left. He was gone. He was like, fuck this fuck this game. And he was out of there. And he was, looking at his prospects, what he could do on the Indies. And then he got the call to go to AEW and to do this trial by fire match, which he didn't even know was a trial by fire match. He ended up finding out later on when he was in his apartment in Texas. And you have to remember, all of this happened during the pandemic. So it's a little surreal, where you are coming in to wrestling. You're wrestling a major fixture in this company. You do an excellent job. And then you get signed off of that one match. You get signed. So it must have felt insanely gratifying for Ricky. He said that he went home. He was sitting at home when he got the text message that he got signed. And he played the song I Wonder by Kanye West. If you don't know how that song goes, I would play it, but copyright will not let me play it. But he says that this is the song he played when he got signed. He was at home. He was by himself. It was pandemic. They were heavily quarantined at this time. And he said that this song, he only played it when, this happened. And the lyrics to the song, or at least the chorus said, Kanye says in one of the verses, he says, I've been waiting on this my whole life. These dreams be waking me up at night. You say I think I'm never wrong. You know what? Maybe you're right. I believe that's the bridge. But he also says in the verse, the first verse, he says, you say he get on your fucking nerves. You hope that he get what he deserves. Do you even remember what the issue is? You try to find where the tissue is. You could still be who you wish you is. It ain't happened yet, and that's what intuition is. When you hop back in the car, drive back to the crib, run back to their arms, the smoke screens, the chokes, and the screams, you ever wonder what it really means? Essentially, the song I Wonder is about how he finally got what he had been dreaming of, and he literally dreamed of it so much that he manifested it. And it's like, I'm getting on people's nerves. I'm talking about it over and over and over again, and I'm embodying what I want. I am presenting what I want, and now I finally achieved it. And I'm just in awe of what this means for me, the power that I hold over my own destiny in the universe and everything. It's a very good song. This is off the Graduation album. If you are interested, it is one of Kanye West's best bodies of work. It's one of my favorite albums by Kanye West. I have this album on CD because I loved it. I played I Wonder a lot. It was one of my favorite songs on this album. It was not a lead out single, but it is a very good song if you want to feel motivated. And it has an amazing arrangement in terms of the musical engineering of it. Kanye West is a genius in that regard. His sampling skill is it's peak. It's peak. There are very few musicians or musical engineers that can really sample songs. And I don't mean sample like taking the whole song and then you're recording something new over it. I mean taking pieces of a song, like a simple drum beat or a word or a note or just someone saying, emoting an emotion, not even saying anything, and just turning that into a whole song is an art in itself. And he's probably one of the best of my era of music to do that, despite his insanity. Because most good artists are tortured artists at heart, and Kanye West definitely is a tortured artist. But there's your, little music history to sum things up for you. Ricky Starks played this song. He cried, called his family, and he told them that he got signed to AEW. And it was a very happy yet somber but sweet moment for him. And he said that it was surreal, but he was happy that it happened. And he knew that this would happen for him. I don't know, I think it was unexpected for him in that regard, but he has tremendous amount of faith and belief in himself, which I wish I could borrow some of it because it's insane. So Ricky Starks then goes on and he is asked about his um, situation with Edge and the infamous promo that was cut with Edge. They talk about his promos with MJF and how it really grew online and how people really loved MJF and his back and forth and how that's like, an arch nemesis type of situation for Ricky Starks, which I would revisit now after he gets done with Cole and Roderick Strong. At least that's what I would do. But they also touched on what Adam Copeland did with him in the ring. And he told Edge he had bug eyes, and Edge basically called him a vanilla midget, which is wild. A vanilla midget is crazy. And Ricky Starks was like, well, I could have been like, bitch, I'm black. The fuck? Like, just because you can't tell what I am don't mean you know what I am. Oh, but I left it alone. I would have went at Adam Copeland neck. I was like, bitch, if you don't get the fuck out of my face before I make your ass go on the show for another 9 years, I promise you it won't have to be your neck. It can be anything. But stop fucking playing with me. Stop fucking playing with me. Like, I would have cut Adam Copeland deep, deep. I'm like, is you mad that your wife is a better wrestler than you? Is that what we're mad at? Like, is you mad that when you went back to WWE, your failed attempt to create Judgment Day didn't get off the way you thought it was going to get off for you, and they ended up whooping your ass and taking your ass out? And that is you mad or not? Is you mad? Like, I gotta wait for it. Baby, I'm petty. Very. But anyways. Oh, girl. Man. Oh, I would have been eating people up. But I've noticed too that even on my own, like even for me, like when I'm talking to people, I stammer when I get angry and I get upset. Like I get out of my element. If I'm talking to you and you piss me off and we get mad and I'm out of my element, I probably will go off cuff and say the most dastardly thing I can say. because at that point, you've taken me to a point where I'm so angry and I'm so upset that my logic and reasoning is now thrown out the window. And that's probably one of the reasons why I will never be a professional wrestler or manager, because the moment that you say something that invokes an emotion from me outside of laughter, and even if I know that it's coming, it's just the sheer reaction of everyone else. And of course, me being in that situation where I will legitimately bite your fucking head off if I can. I am going to say the most disgusting shit that I can say, because I want you to feel the embarrassment and pain that I feel. You know, this is why I don't work in these situations. I'm extremely emotional, extremely. I'm sensitive about my shit. Anyways, let's get back to Ricky. This is not about me, it's about Ricky Starks. So Ricky Starks was talking about that promo. He basically was like, I'm not the one who came out looking bad in that promo. That wasn't me. You know, they was basically talking about how he went off script. And he was like, there was no script to go off of. And what he was gonna say, or what it looked like he was attempting to say, is like Ricky Starks in the script probably ain't gonna be in the same sentence. And fair enough. But given what we know about AEW, I know damn well they don't have scripts. I know that they have bullet points that they should hit in their promos to round everything out and to head into the next segment. They need to hit certain points. You know, they was just like, oh, Ricky went off script. AEW goes off script. Like they're the most unscripted wrestling. And it's just like, well, there's no script to unscript. So that's not true. And that's basically what Ricky was saying. And it's cool, you know. He then goes in to talk about his strap match with Brian Danielson, and how great that was. And this interview has been pretty watchable. It's been enjoyable. It's like listening to two friends talk and just have a moment. And Ricky Starks genuinely is a pretty decent guy. He's very confident. And I've seen a lot of people describe him as arrogant in terms of character, which I think his character is an amplified version of him. But I think just Ricky in general is just a very confident and just believing in himself type of person. Like he believes in himself to a fault. Almost he will bet against himself never, which I want just a little piece of that, just a little piece. I don't want a lot of it. I don't want all of it. Just share just like a little sliver of that, because I am hard on myself to the point where I will literally talk myself out of an opportunity of being able to succeed or advance in any career field that I'm in. And it's detrimental to me that I will do that because I don't believe that I'm good enough. Whereas Ricky Starks believes in himself no matter where he is at the moment. He said that earlier in the interview that there was a time where he was living in a car, he was sleeping on somebody's couch, and this was before he got the call from AEW. Like it wasn't that long ago. And then he was able to get an apartment. He had an apartment. He had somewhere to stay. And then it was quarantine. He was alone, and he got the call, and it was just like, I believed in myself so much that everything that I've ever worked for has finally come to fruition. Now money is not of the issue. It's not like necessarily where you're overwhelmingly financially stable, but he's stable enough to be able to live his life and do whatever he wants to do, invest in things, have his good times, have his fun, and work like he wants to work. You know what I mean? That's an amazing thing. And not everybody in their lifetime can say that. So I love that for Ricky. I just want a piece of that. That's all. So as the show progresses into what he talks about working with CM Punk, he says that Punk was very instrumental in finally letting him showcase how he wanted to be portrayed. Like he went to Punk and he had been, talking about how they do the walk-ins, and like WWE does it, but they do it in a different manner. They don't really they do it similar to the way the NBA does, where they're just filming them walking in. You see them wearing their regular street clothes. Sometimes they're coming in, walking in dressed regular, like Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn and them. They don't really have nothing that they cling to in terms of style and all of that. But the girls give you the girls. The girls give you not designer. The girls give you style. The girls give you grace. She's beauty and she's grace. She's Miss United States. The girls give you the girls. But sometimes the dudes give you a little bit too. You know, Seth freaking Rollins is always shining and giving, honey. And then of course Bronson Reed, Kofi, Roman, they love them some Jordans. Major, major sneaker heads. You feel me? So it's just very interesting. You know what I'm saying? It's very interesting to see it. And he said he had got the idea from the NBA, which I'm sure WWE got that idea from NBA. Football does it as well. So they film the guys walking in wearing their entrance attire. Sometimes they're wearing, regular clothes. You notice when you watch, excuse me for yawning. If you notice when you watch the NBA, some of the guys are very, very fashionable. Some of them are very up on the sneakerhead game, okay? And of course, they have the money to do so. But you notice, like Russell Westbrook has become synonymous for his entrance outfit. So has Dwayne Wade at one point. LeBron James was very much on the fashion cusp. If you notice now, he's a part of the Met Gala for next year. Um, so it's a big thing. And so Ricky was trying to implement that into wrestling somewhat. And so he was like, he talked to Punk, and Punk was like, yeah, let's do it. I love it. And the pyro going off for 10 minutes, that also was a thing that Punk approved. So there was a lot of things that Ricky was able to get done and was able to use to showcase the character he wanted to portray due to Punk's involvement in the behind the scenes stuff. And that just really helped. And he talked about how a lot of the things that people got to see when it came to that Owen Hart tournament and working with CM Punk, that it came to fruition because of him. So he was integral in letting Ricky essentially be Ricky. So they go into his time in WWE when he was doing the little side missions. So, like I told you guys earlier, oftentimes what WWE do, they will hire local talent to play certain roles. Sometimes they'll play off-duty police officers. Other times they'll play U.S. Marshals. They will play. They just will play these roles where they are, adding a piece to the story, an addendum, which will then lead to something else for the superstars and the story. And they just do it because they're local talent. They don't have to hire any off duty cops to do anything. And they can portray the story however they please. So the talent is usually the ones who has to do this. Sometimes they come in to play lawyers, doctors, siblings, whatever the case may be, whatever they need, that's what they're doing. And so Ricky starts talking about the time that he played a U.S. Marshal, and he was getting there to arrest Roman Reigns. But Roman was, essentially like, hell no, I'm not getting arrested, and he ended up fighting back and was kicking ass. And Ricky was like, I had on dress shoes. I was getting my ass murked. He said that he was like, man, he was like, it was rough. But he said, you know what? The cool thing about that is he said the outfit was great. And then, like, you'll never know if Ricky starts to joking or not, but he dead ass was like, um, yeah, it's long term storytelling because I was able to go and get my U.S. Marshals degree, and now I can arrest anyone legally at any show at any time. So I thought that was hilarious. I was like, dude, what? I thought that was funny. Now I'm not sure if it's true, but I thought it was funny. Um, I thought it was hilarious. So that was a cute moment. He talked about how he had to do a moment with Ryback and how Ryback um, put him through a table, and it was like 3 times. It took him 3 times. First 2 times he got slapped. Second time he got put through a table, had tuna salad all over him and everything. He ended up ripping his Calvin Klein shirt that he wore. The next time he came in, he was a U.S. Marshal. Roman, well, that's what Chris was bringing up. Certain instances, Roman was fighting back against being arrested, and Ricky Starks had to come in as a U.S. Marshal, wore a full-on suit, left his wallet in his car with his girlfriend, thought he could go out there and catch her and get the wallet, but he couldn't because they needed him on set immediately. So he ended up getting dressed, putting the suit on. He said the best thing about that was that he was a badass and that he ended up going to get his degree and he can arrest anybody now, which I thought was fucking funny. Sorry. And then he had a match with Kane on main event, which is nuts in itself. Mayor Kane, child, go from citizen high to citizen hell, I guess you could say. But I think all of those instances are cool. And he asked him in the beginning of this, he said, "Hey, like, do you believe, like, do you think that, you wish that these instances where you were in WWE for a minor amount of time, excuse me, would have manifested into you possibly getting a contract in WWE and actually working for the company?" And he says that he regrets nothing and that he thinks everything worked out the way that it should have. But at the time, he felt like it sucked. And he said during his time, he auditioned in 2017. He did a trial in 2017. They liked him. They liked his promo skills. He was up against people who already had major names on the indies. And he said that that was a time frame where they were using their fans to pull them in, and that was allowing them to make money into the network. So with him saying that, I'm speculating. I want to make sure everybody understands I am speculating. He didn't clarify or state anything, but I'm speculating because 2017 was NXT's peak season, especially for the women's division more specifically. But they had already started to pull the girls up from NXT, and they were using talent that already had names on the indies to come in and, revive. So that was around the time of Johnny Gargano, Champa, Keith Lee. This was shortly after Bailey and everybody's stint, and this was around their peak days. This was Triple H's baby, they didn't start filming in Full Sail until 2012. And they started on the network in 2010, but they were aired exclusively on the network from 2017 on out. Like I think they were always exclusively on the network from the very beginning. So my apologies for the misinformation. They were always exclusively on the network, right? And then they would air. I believe NXT started on Tuesdays, then they moved to Wednesdays. In like 2019, I think, when SmackDown moved to Tuesdays again. And then they ended up moving SmackDown back to Friday and had Friday Night SmackDown again once they moved to Fox. But he's right because he came in during a time where NXT was very stacked at that point. So you had people like Adam Cole, Akira Tozawa, Alexander Wolf was there at that time, Bianca Belair, Asuka, Angelo Dawkins, Andrade, Bobby Roode, okay, Buddy Murphy. Corey Graves was transitioning from wrestling and going into announcing. So you had Dakota Kai, Eric Young, Ember Moon, Elias. Drew McIntyre had made his way back by then. Dash Wilder and oh boy, his partner from FTR, they were also there. You had Hideo Itami, Johnny Gargano, like I said earlier, Kairi Sane, Cassius Ono, Kyle O'Reilly, Leo Rush, Marcel Bartel, Mandy Rose, Liv Morgan. These were early days. Killian Dane, Montez Ford, okay? Nikki Cross, Pete Dunne, all right? You've got Oni Lorcan. You had so many people over here at the time, and these people were major fixtures in NXT. Raul Mendoza, Raquel Rodriguez, which her name was Reina Gonzalez at the time, Razor Akam, Riddick Moss, Rhea Ripley, early days Rhea Ripley, Ruby Riott, Roderick Strong, major indie name in Roderick Strong, Shayna Baszler, Shane Thorne, Scott Dawson is the other half of FTR. You've got Sarah Logan, Samoa Joe, okay? Like these are massive, massive names in 2017. Velveteen Dream was still there. Ty Dillinger, Tyler Bate, even Taynara Conti was over there at the time. Sonya Deville, Steve Cutler, who is now over in Steve Macklin over in TNA. You've got Tommaso Ciampa, like I said, with his struggle beard at the time. Trent Seven, Tucker Knight, um, just so many people. You also had Zelina Vega over there, Wolfgang. These were all people coming from the indies, people who auditioned, people who had like trials and were in this version of NXT. This was late in NXT though. This was to NXT in 2017 in December. So think about how NXT looked early on in the year of 2017. Let me see. So when I look at the roster going all the way back to February, it just didn't have as many names. Gargano and Champa were not on the roster back in February of 2017. So looking at the roster and going by how it shifts throughout the year and from the beginning of the year, them not having that many people to them almost doubling their roster towards the end of 2017 is like low key crazy. But they had a pretty stacked roster at that time. So no matter when he's referring to in terms of the time frame that he was there, he's absolutely right that they were using indie names to bring them in because some of these people were on the Tough Enough thing and they ended up making it into NXT rather than winning Tough Enough altogether. But like during Bobby Roode's time as champion, Bobby Roode was a pretty, Ric Flairy like knockoff of champion. Shinsuke Nakamura was there in March. I don't know when he got there, but he was there in March. Cole and them didn't get there till later, but Roderick Strong was definitely a fixture already set in NXT. You had so many people that were there and like prepping and getting pushed and getting ready to get pushed, or people that we see now that are really popular and popping either in other promotions or currently in WWE as we speak. So it's very interesting that he brought it up that way because it makes sense as to why he didn't get in. He was going to be in NXT for sure. I don't think they were going to pull him to the main roster immediately. So they didn't have the space for him. And then, while in my opinion, they did, because the characters in NXT were very, very vast. But I think he said it himself, they just did not know what to do with him. And to that, I say that's fair because you did it. Like, clearly, you were like a little, not on the same page in terms of what to do with him as a competitor in this particular space. And I feel like Ricky Starks could have really shined where Velveteen Dream shined. Ricky Starks could have taken that spot and they could have had somebody who had the flash and the flamboyancy, but maybe not as flamboyant as Velveteen Dream. But Ricky definitely would have filled that void of unwavering arrogance and confidence that Velveteen Dream exhibited. Ricky would have done it in a totally different way that I think would have latched on during that time. But again, I agree with him when he says everything happens for a reason. And I think that in Ricky's case, his rise was so organic and so tailor made for him that it's better off that it went this way instead of going the latter. They went on to continue talking and they just, they finished talking about the match with Kane and how he felt about that and what he had to say and how he just thought the insults to the crowd were just insane. But then they start to talk about, if he's happy where he is in his life, and he said that he is happy. Is he content? No. And I think people often confuse happiness with and content. Being happy, you can be happy and not be content with where you are. You can be happy and still aspire to want more. Some people are stuck in a mode of aspiring for happiness. And once they achieve that, they don't have anything else. There are others, though, who are inane. They are go getters by a fault. They strive for greatness at all times. And those people are not necessarily elitists like most people believe them to be, but they have a hunger inside of them that is unmatched. And they will do everything in their power to to prep for that greatness, to move towards that greatness, to continue to strive to achieve it. Even in their happiness, they still have a goal to work towards. And I think that's all that Ricky was saying in this particular segment is that he's happy, but he's not content. He's not going to sit still and just wait for things to come to him. He's going to work, improve his work ethic. He said that it's never been said that he is difficult to work with. He isn't. He said that he knows who he is. He's aware of where he is, but he knows what he has potential to be. He knows what he is right now, and he knows what he brings to the table. And to be honest, a lot of people could learn a lot from Ricky Starks if we're being fair. So Chris V, because I always say his name wrong, he ends the show with asking every person that he's talking to what you are grateful for, because he's a big proponent of gratification. And the first thing Ricky said was he's grateful for the people in his life, his tribe. And he said that he was grateful for people who don't know him, people that, enjoy his character work, his wrestling, and people who just wish him well. He said he's grateful for those who just want the best for me and wish nothing but happiness and the best for me. And he's also grateful for himself. He said that he's grateful for the fact that he showed up for his younger self to make his younger self's dreams come true. He said he's grateful for the times that he had to fight and claw and scrape and really dig through the muck to get everything that he's gotten. He said he's very grateful for himself for those reasons and for showing up for himself when he needed to, for being there for himself. And it's very interesting to hear. And a lot of people will, again, they will take this as arrogance, but I don't see it that way. He doesn't come across as arrogant. He's very confident, but he also has an unwavering belief in himself that allows you to see Ricky understands who he is. He generally just has a very clear picture of who he is, where he wants to go, and he loves himself. And I think that's what people are mistaking for arrogance is that he really, really loves himself. And that takes a lot of hard work for people to fall in love with themselves. But I love this interview. I thought this interview was cool. And I really enjoyed listening to him tell his side of the story because now I have a clear understanding of what's going on here. From his perspective, essentially, Ricky's just left out of the loop. He doesn't know what's going to happen, but he's not worried about it. And you can tell that he's not worried about it. However, I don't think it's that clean and smooth on AEW side. And while I love Ricky Starks, I think Ricky Starks is going to be a star no matter where he ends up or goes. I just wish that they would just take a chance on Ricky. Because, like I said earlier, Ricky Starks could really give you some really good storylines and he could be amazing. Okay. Ricky Starks is a great superstar to have in the arsenal. Great. Like any mid card, main event situation, Ricky's your go to guy. He'd be very much a workhorse, like a Seth Rollins would be, and Adam Cole was in NXT, like Gargano was in NXT. Like he's one of those type of guys where you can strap the rocket to him and he will be successful no matter what. So I hope that they do end up finding a way to utilize Ricky Starks very soon because if they don't, they're going to lose him. I don't think he was planning on coming to WWE during the time he was with Cody. Not gonna lie, I did originally, but I felt like I knew at the time that he still had time left on his contract. So I was like, well, he's not leaving right now. But I'm like, maybe he's just there to be there with Cody because they're cool. And that's the narrative that me and my homegirls and my homeboys went with was that he was cool with Cody and he was there, maybe he was there or invited to be there. But I was like, to me, it didn't resonate with me on a deep, deep level that he was going to go to WWE. It just was like, well, maybe he was considering it and he was just talking to Cody about it. Or he came to the Rumble because he was going to be a part of it. I thought he was going to be in the Rumble. I'm like, not Ricky Starks backstage, bitch. We finna eat good. But this just goes to show you how that online discord doesn't really know anything, and they try to make it seem like they do, but they are speculating just like we are. And they really don't have any definitive answers until someone gives them the keys to the kingdom. I really enjoyed this interview with Ricky. Chris B is a great interviewer. He's very laid back, but he asked the right questions to get the right answers. And Ricky wasn't holding anything back. He answered them to the best of his knowledge. He wasn't being messy in some instances, but for the most part, he was very honest and open with everything that he was talking about. So I appreciate this interview and I loved it. If you guys want me to do more of Chris B's interviews and break them down by how I see it and everything they're talking about, I'll do it. There are some that I really don't want to watch. Um, I just don't really, I'm not as invested in everything as everybody else is. So for me, it doesn't mean anything. But if you guys want me to do this, I will do this. I will break this stuff down for you and post these podcast style breakdowns of the videos. So you guys keep it cute, keep it tight, and I will see you guys in my next one. Thank you so much for listening to me. I know that I rant and rave, but I had to get that stuff out, y'all. And we vibing over here. So I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.